Hello, this is Gwen. Today is Monday, October the 2nd, 2017, and it's about 6:21 p.m. I want to talk about black people and post-traumatic stress disorder. And the point I want to make here is that we should forgive each other a little bit because we're all living in a state of terrorism and we all have a bit of post-traumatic stress disorder, except it's not post-traumatic, it is current traumatic. What I'm going to talk about is a bit about the Department of Veterans Affairs and the idea of post-traumatic stress disorder. That is a disability that or illness that veterans have. That is veterans of various military activity. You don't have to be a war veteran to get paid for post-traumatic stress disorder. You can get it from sexual assault or personal assault, um, in several other ways. I've got the reg in front of me right here, and if you ever want to look it up, you can Google 38 CFR 3.304, and it's under direct service connection for wartime and peacetime. And this 3.304, I'm going to scroll down here to 3.304F when they talk about post traumatic stress disorder. And it's got F 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to talk about 3.304F3, and this is post traumatic stress disorder. And it says, if a stressor claimed by a veteran is related to the veteran's fear of hostile, military, or terroristic activity, and a VA psychologist or psychiatrist or psychologist with whom the VA has contracted confirmed that the claimed stressor is adequate to support a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder and that the veteran symptoms are related to the claimed stressor in the absence of clear and convincing evidence to the contrary, that the veteran can be, and I stopped reading, the veteran can be confirmed as having post-traumatic stress disorder as related to a military activity. Okay? Now, if you take out the word veteran and put down black person, you got an idea. Okay? Now, I'm going to scroll down. I'm not going to scroll down here, but I'm going to jump down here to the very bottom, the last sentence of it. Now, and it says, and the veteran's response to the event or circumstance involved a psychological or psychophysiological state of fear, helplessness, and horror. Okay? That's the last little phrase there. That's why I say we are all in a state of post-traumatic stress disorder as black people, and to forgive each other a little bit more than we're doing because we all have the markers. Now, the reason why I talk about this is that a lot of Americans have post traumatic stress disorder for various reasons, like a person who saw a school bus crash and their bodies and people all around, they're dying, or an ambulance driver who sees trauma and people hurt and ill and needing services all day, they might have post traumatic stress disorder. The difference is it wasn't as a result of military action or their service. That's why veterans get paid for having post traumatic stress disorder, depending on how bad that disability is for them. And they get paid money for it, and they should, because if it wasn't for them being in the military, they wouldn't have gotten it in those circumstances. So, yes, they get paid for it. Black people are in a state of terrorism. We are all terrified because our legal system has let us down. When we see black people get killed by cops and we see the cop get away with it, that compounds the terrorism. We don't know what's going to happen when we are confronted by a policeman. We don't know. And we don't even expect for them to be chastised if they hurt us or do something inappropriate, because we have already seen them get away with it. In our mind, despite what the court system says, it is still them getting away with it because we saw them do it. And we saw what the court system said. So that doesn't negate the problem, that compounds the problem. So now, not only is the officer the terrorist, so is the legal system. So is the U.S. government. That's why we're in a terrorist state. Another YouTuber that I watch, Tariq, he says we are in a prisoner of war state, and he's absolutely right. I'm just paraphrasing him. I've listened to him and I'm a fan, but I'm paraphrasing how he puts it. It tells it a state of prisoner of war mentality. We are literally prisoners of wars. But I say we're also in a terroristic state. Among the markers for PTSD, if a veteran files a claim for PTSD under assault or some of the other conditions that are non-wartime, that isn't direct related to war, like shells, snipers, bombs, and all of that. Sometimes they have assault conditions, and some of the markers that the claim worker will look for is changes in work behavior. Like sometimes you're a top quality worker, and then suddenly you have a left turn and become a bad worker. Or that, are you going to the doctor more? Are you doing this more? Just different stages of changes in behavior. Among that you can look at is volatility. We are kind of volatile with each other sometimes because we're the easy target. We won't get in trouble when we jump on each other like we would if we jump on somebody that we're really mad at. So we have a lot of hostility with each other, and that's, in my mind, part of our PTSD, or our current not post-traumatic but current traumatic stress disorder. A whole lot of symptoms there. I'm not a psychiatrist, and nor would I even trust a regular psychiatrist to even figure this out. I will trust a black pro pro black first psychiatrist to make that connection, but we do need to look at each other a little bit more kindly and recognize that we're all under that, okay? Stop beating up each other and jumping on each other. We need to focus our energies on the real enemy. And we all aren't in this journey at the same level. There are some people who are not even recognizing there is a need for a journey. There are other people who are just at the bottom rung, recognizing it, but don't know what's wrong and don't know how. And there are other people that are way, 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 way up, who live in a whole different reality than the people who are just starting. So we got to just kind of be a little bit kinder to each other, okay? So, I mean, okay, I'm back. Yeah, I'm saying we need to be a little bit kinder to each other. I recognize that we do have a need for unity, and if not unified in action at the micro level, that is, everybody in lockstep, that's not our way. So if not that, then certainly unified in looking out for each other. There are some people who aren't gonna ever be in lockstep with me, and I'm not gonna be in lockstep with them. But I say we should form a unified front when it comes to looking out at other people. just like every other culture does. The left wing and right wing and middle wing of all the Caucasoid folks, they don't agree, but they are unified when it comes to them confronting somebody else. They save their infighting for infighting. You can watch it, but when you are facing them in the court system and they're letting that officer get away, nobody that's white is undermining any of that to any effective way. Otherwise, it wouldn't still be there. They wouldn't still be doing it. Nothing, anybody, no matter what stripe of Caucasoid white person has, they are not effectively changing anything because they might say noise and point and help you march and stuff, but nobody on that side is really fixing nothing. Otherwise, it would be fixed by now. So, I'm saying we got to understand that. Same thing with the Hispanics, the Asians, and all the other cultures and people of the world. They got sense enough to unify when it's um, common purpose that benefits them. And they also unify when they are facing a person that's doing harm to them. I say we should do that. We should not be arguing with each other in public forums. We should not be going up on public forums saying bad things about each other. We need to save our infighting where it's effective, which is among each other. I learned that a long time ago, even before I was pro black or any of that, even before I even learned what I learned. I knew that I didn't want white people seeing me argue with other black people. I knew that in the 70s when I was in the middle of assimilation and all the positive things that comes with assimilation. I knew better than to argue with another black person in front of white people. So that just the reason why I knew why I shouldn't argue with white people, I mean black people in front of white people, is because their eyes were too greedy when somebody black said something hostile to me, and their eyes were so greedy looking at us. It was another beautiful black lady. I was considered pretty attractive myself, and this other beautiful black lady said something hostile to me, right? And there were white people present. And instead of me snapping at her, I kind of glanced at them because those were her backers, right? And she said this hostile thing to me, but their eyes were so greedy to look at it. They wanted to witness this spectacle. They wanted to see it. And really, they leaned forward and had this little look on their face, like, okay, they were excited to watch this action. Watch white people sometimes when black people argue. Watch their faces. You are their entertainment and they can't wait to see it. Okay? They also have that look when they see black people attracted to each other. They want to see that like they watch dogs mate or other animals mate. Okay? So watch white people when they see black people argue or get ready to see black people argue. They can't wait. And I kind of watched their eyes be greedy for the spectacle. So I didn't argue with her. I didn't engage. I pretended like I didn't even know she said something hostile. I negated it. I nipped it in the bud. That was my first experience of watching them being entertained, or at least my first experience of catching on that they're entertained by our anger and hostility toward each other. Don't give them that show. And thereafter, years later, I always made sure that if I got something bad to say to another black person, I pull them aside and say what I have to say. I give them a chance to respond, and everything that's said among us and between us stayed right there. And I've said some pretty bad, excuse me, I've said some pretty bad stuff, some pretty mean stuff. That person, when I was done, knew exactly where I stood, and I knew where they stood. And we settled whatever differences there were, or if we didn't settle, we went our separate ways. That's the way I handle problems. That's how grown people handle problems. Grown people handle problems because they want it solved. They don't want to put on the show. That's why grown people handle the problems that way. They don't want a show. They don't need a show. They don't care about a show. They want this action changed. They want that problem solved. And so the way to solve a problem is the effective method. And that is you pull them aside and you tell them where you stand, how you feel, what you want done, and what you will put up with, what you won't put up with, what you where you stand. That's all we need to say about that. You need to tell them where you stand without putting on a show for folks. That's how you solve a problem, and that's how I solve problems. It's very effective, 100% effective. Standing around on the corner or in the living room bitching and loud and shouting and running your mouth never solved a problem, really, because you're not doing the things that make the problems stop. You're not making the change. All you're doing is venting, making noise, and showing how much you can make noise and how well you can turn a phrase. But you're not effectively solving a problem. That's why you have to keep doing what you're doing over and over again because you never solved the problem. So that's how you solve a problem, and that's how I suggest we handle problems among ourselves. It's not give white people a show. Okay? So, watch each other's back, unified front, even though we got in-house fighting and bickering and changes, that we have to do among each other. But unified front, keep our fighting in-house, pay attention to other cultures and people so we can learn what they got to teach us and pay attention. But that unified front, forgive each other when we are tripping because we all have stress disorder and we have fear of terrorist or hostile activity. And we're very disappointed and disheartened at the way the government is handling it. So if that ain't PTSD, I don't know what is. Okay? So that's all I had to say about this. I just want us to really get a grip, mostly. That's all. Okay. Thanks for listening to me.